The day Mom was wheeled into the intensive care unit, Joanna wouldn't help me with a penny. "My funds are used for venture capital, not to fill a bottomless pit," she said in a cold tone. "I have given you several low-interest loan channels. You can figure it out on your own." I was squatting in the stairwell holding a pile of payment bills and overheard her leaning against the window on the phone. "The $5 million startup capital has already been transferred to your account," she said to Noah, the company's new intern. "Even if the project loses money, I will keep the money and use it as training for you." I clutched the crumpled document tightly, my nails dug into my palms, and blood oozed from them. Joanna turned around and saw me. Seeing that I was not crying, hysterical, or begging, she nodded with satisfaction. "This is the right thing. Stop throwing tantrums like a child. Being independent means learning to take on everything by yourself." I nodded to her expressionlessly, and she left without looking at me again. At that moment, my heart completely died. There were no tears, no yelling, not even the energy to question her. I took out the divorce agreement that I had drafted in advance stroke by stroke and signed my name. From now on, her life belongs to her, and my life belongs to me. The red light in the intensive care unit hurts people's eyes. The smell of disinfectant wrapped around me tightly. It was cold and suffocating, and every breath I took felt like needle-pricking pain. I hold a thick stack of payment slips in my hand. The paper is wrinkled with sweat, and every line of numbers is the last straw for me. My mother had acute organ failure and underwent emergency surgery overnight. She is now lying in the ICU with her life or death uncertain. The doctor repeatedly warned that follow-up monitoring, special medicines, and rescue equipment must not be interrupted. Once the medicine is stopped, we will be separated forever. I was desperate and turned to look at Joanna standing by the corridor window. My wife, whom I have been married to for 3 years, has devoted all my heart and soul to accommodate and fulfill her. She wore a well-tailored haute couture suit, exquisite makeup, and meticulous hair. She exuded the calmness and dignity of a strong career woman. Even in a miserable and hopeless place like the hospital, she was still decent, glamorous, and untroubled. But there was no trace of humanity, no sympathy for me. My throat was dry and hoarse, and I suppressed the exhaustion from staying up late for days. I tried to keep my tone calm, with the last trace of humble request for help. "Joanna, all the money in my hand has been advanced, and there is still a large sum of money left for ICU treatment. Can you transfer it to me first? Let me borrow it from you, and I will pay you back double in the future." I thought that even if we were married for 3 years, there was no overwhelming love. There was at least some affection. I thought she would reach out and give me a hand when my family was in dire straits and my loved ones were critically ill. But what I was waiting for was her extremely cold and heartless rejection. She didn't even lower her head to look at me. Her gaze fell lightly on the window, and her tone was as indifferent as if she was dealing with an insignificant piece of junk business. "All my funds are locked in the venture capital position. If I move it, I will lose money. I can't move it. Your family affairs are your bottomless pit. I have no obligation to pay for your family of origin." My heart sank suddenly, and the chill shot from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. I stared at her and couldn't believe my ears. During the 3 years of marriage, I handed over all my salary and took care of all the housework. I accommodated her temper in everything and accommodated her career priority. She stayed up late and worked overtime while I cooked soup and served her. I took care of her every step of the way when she was on business trips. Behind all her dignity and glory were my compromises and sacrifices day after day. I have never burdened her with anything, and I have never spent any money on her. Now my mother's life is hanging by a thread, and all I ask for is an emergency turnaround, but in her mouth, it becomes a bottomless pit. I gritted my teeth and my voice trembled. Just an emergency. When my mother is over the critical period, I will find a way to make up for it immediately, and I will never drag you down. Joanna finally turned her head to look at me. There was no trace of unbearability in her eyes, only impatience and disgust. I said I won't borrow it. I have sent you several low-interest loan channels. You can apply for them yourself and find ways to fill the holes. In the adult world, everyone has their own business. Don't always think about relying on others. I subconsciously took out my phone, and there were several loan links she sent me a few minutes ago lying quietly on the screen. When I was on the verge of collapse and my loved ones were critically ill, she refused to help me. Instead, she coldly threw me a bunch of loan channels, leaving me burdened with debt to fill my mother's life-saving hole. At that moment, the last remaining warmth in my heart cooled down. I didn't argue or pester anymore. Superfluous begging is cheap and ridiculous in the face of absolute indifference. I turned around silently and squatted in the cold stairwell, leaning against the wall, rubbing the heavy bill over and over with my fingertips. The light in the corridor was pale, making my face look lifeless. I was still trying my best to convince myself that she was just rational, career-minded, not good at empathy, not unloving, not biased, not unfeeling, until I heard her lowered voice and extremely gentle voice on the phone. It was a soft and indulgent tone that I had never heard before, completely different from the cold and harsh tone towards me. Noah, I have transferred the full amount of the $5 million startup capital to your personal account. You can feel free to try new projects and do it freely without any pressure. Even if the project is all in vain, I will take full responsibility for the money. You won't have to bear any losses. It will be treated as a resource dedicated to your training. Noah. I remember the name. The new intern at Joanna's company is young, glamorous, able to please and show weakness. She hangs around her every day and is deeply favored by her. The blood all over my body froze instantly, and my limbs were numb with coldness. I desperately tried to save my life, begged for help, and was forced to borrow a loan to fill the hole in my life. She has abundant cash flow and is unwilling to pay a penny for the lives of my close relatives. She regards my family's desperate situation as a bottomless burden. Turning around, he casually tossed out $5 million and squandered it for free on a newly hired intern, pocketing all the losses. He was extremely indulgent and partial. The ultimate double standard, the ultimate eccentricity, the ultimate ruthlessness. It turns out that it's not a lack of money, it's not capital lockup, it's not rational restraint. It's just that I don't deserve it. My family doesn't deserve it, my desperate situation doesn't deserve it, and my sincere efforts don't deserve to make her feel any softer. I clenched the payment receipt in my hand so hard that the folds of the paper broke, the sharp edge of the paper cut into my palm, and my nails dug into my flesh. The sharp sting was painful, but I didn't feel any pain at all. Compared with the bone-chilling chill in my heart, the injuries to my skin and flesh were nothing. Blood slowly seeped out from between his fingers and dripped silently onto the cold ground. There were slight footsteps behind him. After Joanna finished making the call, she turned to look at me squatting in the stairwell. She saw clearly that I was silent, not crying, yelling, or pleading, and she actually nodded with satisfaction on her face. She came over and looked at me condescendingly, with a hint of self-righteous teaching and recognition in her tone. That's right. Stop throwing tantrums like a child. Being independent means learning to bear all the hardships by yourself and not expecting others to take care of everything. If you were sensible earlier, there wouldn't be so many conflicts between us. I slowly raised my head. There were no tears, no resentment, no anger in my eyes, only a dead silence and desolation. I looked at the woman in front of me who I had loved, and accommodated for 3 years, and for the first time I felt strange and ridiculous. She defined her indifference towards me as teaching me independence. She defines huge amounts of connivance to others as cultivation and support. She is always reasonable, always decent, and always aloof. And I will always be the one who is ignorant, holds me back, needs to be educated, and needs to bear all the storms on my own. I didn't argue with her, didn't question the $5 million, didn't cry out about my grievances, and didn't tear her apart from her double standards and partiality. All the entanglement, all the unwillingness, all the love and reluctance at this moment completely returned to zero. I had no expression on my face and nodded to her gently. Well, you're right. Seeing that I was obedient, Joanna stopped preaching, and the last trace of patience in her eyes was exhausted. She didn't take another look at me, who was embarrassed and bleeding. She turned around, stepped on her high heels, and left the hospital corridor neatly. The back view is decisive and shows no nostalgia. The moment she turned around and left, my heart is completely dead. There was no heartbreaking crying, no hysterical collapse, and no humble entanglement. The true desire to give up is always silent. I squatted on the spot, slowly loosened my clenched palms that were white and dripping with blood, and let the crumpled payment slip scatter on the floor. During the 3 years of marriage, I was sincere and gave everything I had in exchange for standing by and refusing to save my loved ones when they were critically ill. In exchange, she had a huge amount of money, and she would rather allow outsiders to squander and practice than give my family a way out. Enough. That's enough. I stood up slowly and wiped off the blood on my palms. My fingertips were still cold, but my mind was completely calm and steady. No more internal friction, no more entanglement, no more nostalgia, no more soft-heartedness. I took out a divorce agreement drafted in advance from my briefcase. It was originally written by hand during a quarrel and Cold War some time ago. I have been hesitant, reluctant, and disillusioned, and I have not signed it yet. It seems ridiculous now. The illusion should have been shattered long ago. I took out the black pen, my fingertips steady without any trembling. One stroke after another, neatly, Party B signed my full name in the signature column. The handwriting is clear and decisive, without any hesitation. From now on, Joanna's fame, connections, and tens of millions of assets belong to her. My trials and tribulations, the illnesses of my loved ones, and the road ahead in life belong to me. The two do not owe each other and are completely separated. I put away the agreement and turned towards the doctor's office. Whether it's a loan, borrowing money, or overdraft, or a credit check, I will save my mother even if I sell everything. I can be poor, tired, miserable, and bear all desperate situations. But I will never accept that my wife, in my desperate situation of life and death, looked on with cold eyes, was unreasonably generous, was extremely partial, and trampled on my sincerity under her feet. In the next few days, I stayed outside the ICU door and never left. I worked all night to raise money, go around, mortgage personal belongings, shoulder all the debt pressure, and forcefully brought my mother back from the brink of death. I endured it until my eyes were bloodshot. My face was haggard and my body was thin, but I never contacted Joanna again. She never took the initiative to ask about my condition, never asked if I had enough money, and never cared about whether I could survive. She still has a bright and glamorous circle of friends, accompanying Noah to high-end dinner parties and business receptions, and leading newcomers to accumulate resources and pave the way to build connections. As expected, the $5 million startup capital was left to Noah to try and make mistakes and squander it at will. Someone told me privately that Noah used the money given by Joanna to buy luxury cars, order luxury watches, play high-end casinos, and show off everywhere that he was in the big boss lap. And I was gnawing cold bread and drinking tap water in the hospital corridor, risking my entire future to save my loved ones. A huge contrast, dazzling and ironic. But I don't have any pain anymore. After the heart dies, only clarity remains. A week later, my mother was successfully transferred out of the ICU, out of danger, and transferred to a general ward for rest. I settled everything, sorted out all the formalities, and went straight back to our wedding room with the signed divorce agreement. Opening the door, Joanna was sitting on the sofa in the living room, elegantly sipping tea and looking through business reports. The years were quiet and decent. When she saw my haggard, tired, and weathered appearance, she frowned slightly, and her tone was condescending. Have you collected enough money? You are finally sensible and don't burden me anymore. I said that people have to rely on themselves in the end. You will grow after you get through it. She was still moved by herself, feeling that it was her indifference that forced me to grow independently. She is still complacent, feeling that she is rational and transparent and has a good way of educating her children, and she is equally powerful and controlling towards her partner. I didn't argue with her. I walked straight up to her and gently placed the divorce agreement on the coffee table. The paper is flat, the signature is crisp and clear. Joanna glanced at the agreement. Her face instantly darkened, and her tone contained obvious impatience and reprimand. Have you had enough trouble? Just because I didn't help you fill the hole in your family, you are too naive and too glass-hearted. I have already said that my funds are planned and cannot be used at will. It is simply unreasonable for you to file for divorce because of such a trivial matter. I raised my eyes and interrupted her calmly for the first time. The voice is not high, but the words are clear and the sentences are heartbreaking. There is no emotional fluctuation at all, only complete alienation. It's not a trivial matter. It was you who refused to save my family when my mother's life was hanging by a thread. I just walked around with $5 million and spent it on outsiders to practice my skills, and I was willing to pay the bottom of the bill. Joanna, it's not that you don't have money, you don't have time, or you don't have the ability. You just don't love me. You're just extremely partial, and you just look down on me and my family of origin from the bottom of your heart. Joanna's expression suddenly changed. A trace of panic flashed in her eyes, and then she forced herself to calm down and spoke in a strong tone of defense. That's investment. It's resource cultivation. Noah has great potential and is worth my investment. What do you know about business layout? The hole in your house is a bottomless pit. If you invest in it, there will only be losses and no returns. What's wrong with me making rational choices? I looked at her confident face and smiled lightly. The smile was cold, thorough, and without any warmth. Yes, you are right. You can spend your money on whomever you want and invest it however you want. So I won't pester, demand, or hold anyone accountable. I just don't want to be with you anymore. Husband and wife are birds of the same forest, and they fly separately when disaster strikes. You fly too decisively. I can't catch you, and I don't want to catch you. Joanna was completely stunned. She was used to my accommodation, my compromise, my bowing my head, and my retention. She has never seen me look so calm, indifferent, and without any nostalgia. She thought that the most I could do was be cold-blooded and lose my temper, and that I would look back after a few words of coaxing from her. She never expected that I would directly refuse to leave without any room for change. Her tone softened for a moment, with a hint of unbelievable awkwardness. Do you have to be so extreme? 3 years of love is not worth one disagreement over capital turnover. I admit that I'm a little indifferent, but I also want the stability of this family's assets. Calm down and take back the agreement. I lowered my eyes and lightly brushed my signature on the agreement with my fingertips. It's not a disagreement. It's 3 years of accumulation and seeing through it all in one go. You can be rational, you can prioritize your career, and you can plan your funds. But you shouldn't have forced me to take out loans to save myself when my loved ones were critically ill and then spend a lot of money to pamper others. Your rationality is to step on my desperate situation to fulfill your preference. I don't want this kind of marriage. Joanna's face completely darkened. The patience in her eyes was completely exhausted, and she began to exert pressure with a strong stance. Okay, you have to make a fuss, right? Then I'll leave it here. Divorce is okay. I will account for 100% of the income during the marriage, and you'll be working at home the whole time, without generating any income. I won't give you any of my property after marriage. The house and car are all my premarital assets. You can leave the house clean. Without me, you'll be saddled with a bunch of hospital debt and have nothing, and your life will only be harder. You have to figure out the consequences yourself. She was sure that I didn't dare to leave. She was convinced that I was in debt from a modest family and could not do without her resources and protection. She was sure that I was just being tough and would eventually bow my head and beg for mercy. In the past, I was indeed afraid. Afraid of having no money, afraid of pressure, afraid of being dragged down, afraid of having nothing. But now I have nothing to lose. I looked up, my eyes open and unafraid. Ken, I'm going to leave the house without a single cent of your property. I will bear all the debts by myself, and bear all the storms by myself. I just ask you to sign immediately. From now on, we will never meet each other again, and there will be no more connections. Joanna froze completely. She was prepared for my crying, my entanglement, my compromise, my humble begging for peace. The only thing I wasn't prepared for was my complete letting go, my indifference, and my decisive withdrawal. Her face turned green and white, and she remained in a stalemate for a long time. Finally, she picked up the pen angrily and signed her name hastily. Okay, since you insist on seeking death, then I will help you. Let's see how long you can survive without me. When you can't hold it any longer, even if you kneel down and beg me, I won't look back. I looked at the signed agreement, and the last ripple in my heart completely calmed down. I didn't reply, didn't argue, and didn't say harsh words out of anger. I just calmly put away the agreement and turned around to pack my simple luggage. From beginning to end, I didn't even look at her. The moment I walked out of the mansion, the sun fell on me, and I felt more relaxed than ever. The grievances, accommodations, internal conflicts, and humility that have been burdened for 3 years are all removed. From now on, I am no longer someone's appendage, no longer someone's tool for keeping secrets, no longer someone who is favored, despised, or abandoned at any time. For the rest of my life, I will live only for myself and my family. And Joanna's backlash has just begun. The second month after I moved out, Noah's project completely fell apart. The so-called potential newcomers and high-quality projects are empty shells and scams from beginning to end. Noah has no practical ability at all. He is just good at painting cakes, trying to please, selling out, and gaining favor. The $5 million startup capital that Joanna put all her trust in and paid for in full was lost. Not only did it lose all its principal, but it also involved contract loopholes, illegal operations, and commercial disputes, directly dragging Joanna's company into a public opinion crisis. Investors are being held accountable, partners are withdrawing capital, stock prices are turbulent, and teams are disengaged. Joanna's carefully maintained persona of a strong businesswoman and accurate investor collapsed overnight. What's even more ironic is that after the incident was revealed, Noah immediately turned his back and ran away, taking away the remaining working capital and disappearing completely, leaving all the mess to Joanna. She devoted all her favor to the person she favored, but in the end, she stabbed her in the back, squeezed her dry, and abandoned her. And I, who she had coldly abandoned and let down so cruelly, was making a comeback step by step. I concentrated on taking care of my recovering mother, put aside the internal friction in my marriage, and devoted myself to my career. Without the endless accommodation, compromise, and humble sacrifice, my mentality has become calmer and more transparent, and my abilities have been completely released. With my solid professional skills, reliable character, and steady work style, I have won high-quality projects one after another. My reputation has exploded, and my income has doubled and skyrocketed. I paid off all ICU debts, replaced my mother with a comfortable resting environment, and my life steadily improved and improved step by step. In just half a year, I was completely out of despair, turned the tables, and had a completely new life. And Joanna completely hit rock bottom. The company's crisis continues to ferment, the capital chain is broken, the reputation is ruined, and the connections are lost. The business elites who were once praised by the stars have become the scapegoats, love brains, and unclear people who are ridiculed by everyone in the circle. She finally realized that her worst decision was not the investment failure. It was when I was in the most desperate situation and needed the most support that I looked on coldly, showed partiality, and personally pushed away the person who loved her the most, was the most tolerant of her, and could best protect her. She started looking for me like crazy, apologizing like crazy, and begging for peace like crazy. She took the initiative to contact me countless times, put aside all her arrogance and dignity, showed weakness, sincerely repented, and tried her best to redeem herself. She cried and said that she was confused, selfish, and indifferent at the time, that she had seen people's hearts clearly, that she would never be partial to outsiders again, and that she was willing to spend everything she had to compensate me. But I have long been calm and untouched. When I was kneeling in a desperate situation, she looked on coldly and forced me to be independent step by step. Now that I have survived all the storms, she looks back in desperation and begs me to be gentle. It's late. The human heart is not a faucet. It cannot be turned off or turned on at will. I can be generous and let go, but I will never look back, never forgive, or repeat the same mistakes. In the end, Joanna's company went bankrupt, her career collapsed, her reputation was ruined, and she lost everything. She guarded the messy mess and lived in endless regret and self-torture every day. She will always remember that she personally gave up the only lover who treated her sincerely, endured hardships with her, and took care of everything for her. The most precious sincerity was exchanged for the most painful betrayal. He ruined his entire life with the most extreme partiality. As for me, I completely cut off the past, got rid of internal friction, and was born toward the sun, and the wind and water began to rise. From then on, she was trapped in the prison of regret, while I was on the verge of a bright new life. Good and evil will eventually be rewarded, and those who are partial and unfeeling will never be redeemed.